Welcome to Tampa Home Talk with your host, native Tampa real estate girl, Katrina Madewell, a full-time, passionate, out-of-the-box thinker, love for home ownership kind of realtor with over 21 years of combined mortgage and real estate experience. Tune in every week at this time for expert advice on everything you need to know about home ownership, finance, maintaining great credit, building wealth, and making your everyday life better, and how you can be financially successful today and tomorrow. Remember, love where you live or let Katrina fix it. Now, here's your host of Tampa Home Talk, Katrina Madewell.
Hi, this is Katrina Madewell of Tampa Home Talk. Thank you so much for joining us this Thursday afternoon. Hopefully we'll make your drive home a little bit better. I have in studio today with me Laurie Zoock. She actually hosts her own show here Thursdays at 11 p.m. Thanks for clarifying there. Half empty, half full show. We like to shake it up and pull a lot of the mainstream media crap out, just like me.
Right, that's right. Get right to the point.
So the mission of our show, since we're kind of new over here at Tan Talk, we came from H&Z and really happy to have a new home. And so our mission here at Tampa Home Talk is really just to help you keep and maintain good credit. If you need help, we'll help you work on it to get it back where it should be. Also, live within your means. I can't stress this enough. People live so far outside of their means. Laura, you and I have talked about this.
The entire country lives outside their means.
It's sad.
Yes.
You know, just if you don't have the cash, you don't have the money, so you don't buy it. So live within your means. And we also, our goal is to help people build wealth. So we have a show actually on Saturday where one of our guests came on and was talking a lot about some of the things that you can do to protect some of your income and your assets and that type of stuff. So look for Mark Sherwin, founder of Sage Capital Advisors, on Saturday's show. Also had guest Brandon Rhymes. He'll be in studio here on Saturday, and he's also a very fun real estate quarterback show host over at HNZ, and he's my counterpart over at Real Estate Radio Network, and I'm just excited to call him a friend. So promoted a bunch of our new listings that we have and stuff. So let's talk about credit stuff. And before we dive in, I'm going to give the studio call-in lines. Please feel free to call us if you have questions about credit. Maybe you've went through a bankruptcy or a foreclosure. You're not really sure what to do next. The studio call-in numbers here we'll take your call live and answer it on air. 727-441-3000. Again, this is Katrina Madewell, Tampa Home Talk. So call in today with your credit questions, your real estate questions, even some mortgage questions. My background is in mortgages. I'm happy to answer those for you. 727-441-3000. So let's start with the basics, I guess, right? Sure. You should monitor your credit report at least every year.
At least once a year.
At least once a year, maybe every 6 months.
Right. And I would go more for the every 6 months, because nowadays with identity theft happening, you've heard what happened at Neiman Marcus and Target with people getting hacked.
Oh, yes. My debit card got closed down. I had to open a new one.
Uh-oh. Right. You got it.
So, and I don't even like Target. That's the irony of it. But, as luck would have it, that's the way it worked. So certainly with that type of stuff, but also just to become aware, because sometimes there'll be little things that you think are paid or your insurance company picked up, and you might have like a collection from a medical something or other that hit. And it's really good to clean that stuff up as soon as possible, as soon as you can.
It is. And it's funny. A lot of the clients whose reports I look at have medical, have had a lot of medical collections listed. Now, collection agencies are, of course, supposed to notify you if something is going into collection. Sometimes it's possible they don't, or the person is moved. But that's why it's important, because once a collection hits your credit report, guess what happens?
There goes your score.
There goes your score.
So, and I thought it was interesting, too. I learned something from you the last time I had you on my show at H&Z, but in Paul Fowlkes and some of the attorneys that you work with, it's interesting. A lot of people don't know this, but you can arrange what they call a pay for delete, right?
You can.
Which is where you're going to settle the account.
I'm going to say in a large percentage of cases you can, and a lot of it is based upon your persistence to speak with that collection agency. Typically what you want first is validation of the debt. Make sure it's yours. And it should be an itemized statement, so you know if they've added interest, fees, penalties, etc. So that because I don't pay anything until I see what the breakdown is, not a summary total. And then what you can do is contact that company, and because it's an industry secret, basically, most people have never heard of a pay for delete agreement. But a lot of these companies will arrange a pay for delete in writing, and they'll remove it from your report. And then guess what happens?
Because they want their money. Yeah, you want that score to go back up.
Right, exactly.
So there's a lot of misnomers on where you should be going to get a copy of your credit report.
There are.
So I know everybody's heard the little snazzy little jingle, freecreditreport.com, baby. No, not a good one.
Well, it's not that it's not a good one, but
it's not the one.
It's not the one that people think of. The real free one done through the credit bureaus is annualcreditreport.com, which, by the way, is very difficult to read and also tends to be very difficult to get online. I mean, I'm a credit consultant, and I was able to get 1 out of the 3 online, and the other 2 they mailed to me. So, you see where that goes.
So that site, again, is annualcreditreport.com.
Right.
And we're going to post that on our website at tampahometalk.com. So just in case you're driving and you can't pick up all of this stuff, you'll have that information.
Yeah, and it does not give you your scores. Yes, you have to purchase your scores if you want them. But using a site like freecreditreport.com, most of the credit monitoring services, they're owned by the credit bureaus, the majority of them. So, for example, freecreditreport.com is actually owned by Experian. It's good for monitoring changes on your report, but what it's bad for are the scores, because they're not FICOs. We call them FACOs. They're based on a totally different system. And that's why people, when they compare them and they think, hey, my scores are really high, and they pull them on FICO, they're not.
Well, you know what, Laurie? It's interesting because those consumer credit scores are completely different than what we get as mortgage scores.
Yes.
And I've had people actually say, hey, I've been monitoring my score. I just paid for it. This is what it is. I'm good. And so we'll pull it the same day. And I'm talking about within hours. And the score, I've literally seen it be 100 points off, which is huge.
It can. And it's funny. I tell people there's no such thing as a FICO score. FICO will sell you a score on myfico.com. But for mortgage companies, it's a slightly different algorithm. It's a slanted model. If you go to an insurance agent, it's a different FICO model. If you go to buy a car, guess what? It's a different model.
Yeah. And the crazy part is, the way credit scoring works, the credit companies, that's their top secret. They're never going to release how those algorithms are and how they work and all of that stuff.
Right.
But some of the things we can tell you about credit reports in regards to scores is they work kind of on a system. So, for example, for the first 6 months when you open up an account, it'll impact your score a little bit because it's new credit. You don't have a very good relationship of paying that account on time. And the older it is, so after it's 6 months, you're actually going to start getting points.
That's correct. First of all, when you apply for credit, it takes points off your score. I do know roughly it's 2 to 5 points. FICO does not reveal a lot when it comes to actual points.
Right.
But after a period of time, after 6 months, that impact will disappear. But the longer you keep your credit lines, for example, I have 2 credit cards that are 15 years old. So I pay them off. But if I was going to purchase a home, a little trick is to keep a small balance every month.
Absolutely.
And that boosts the scores. And 99% of people don't know that.
I can't tell you how many times we've had people come in and actually, they want to purchase and their score might be 10, 15, 20, 30 points off. And so we run what they call the what if simulator. The what if simulator, it'll tell you it's not exact, but it's darn close. It'll estimate, this is a snapshot of your credit report right now as it stands. And if you were to pay off a collection, which a lot of times can actually tank your score.
Exactly.
We'll talk about that after the break when we come back. But essentially, those scores it's a snapshot for the very, very second in time. So they'll say, hey, if you have this credit balance of $1,000 and you pay it down to $250, what does that score look like after you've done that? And more times than not, paying down the balance on the credit cards will give us plenty of points. It'll give us more than what we need, even if they have old stuff. And sometimes people think, I have bad credit for years. That stuff does fall off.
Yes, it falls off after 7.5 years from when it first went delinquent, unless you made a payment later down the road, which resets the clock.
That's right. They have this little thing called date of last activity on the credit reports, and it shows the last time you had any activity on that account. So whether you made a payment, the last time you made a payment, it was in default, reported to the credit bureau, whatever. So again.
Yeah, well, I'm actually going to tell you something on that. Date of last activity may be when you last contacted that company, but the 7.5 years is from the date of initial delinquency, which guess what? Is not often even on the report that you're looking at. So how do the credit bureaus know? Well, they take the word of the creditor or collection agency, which is how you end up in credit prison.
And all that stuff can be challenged, right, Laurie? It's a little bit of what you do.
Well, right. I help clients navigate the maze of credit. I don't promise anybody anything. I'll give you my disclaimer. I'm not an attorney. But what I do is what I know is how it works just from doing it for so many years with so many clients. So I liken it to a Rubik's Cube. You never really, unless you're a genius, you're never going to get that Rubik's Cube completely back, but you can get it fairly close with a lot of work.
Just peel off the stickers and put it back on. No, it's my little joke. Anyway,
good.
Yeah, it's interesting. It is definitely a credit maze. It's a very good example and analogy for it. And we see this every day. We've actually had a home buyer workshop in our office last Saturday, and we're doing the next half of that this Saturday. And we partner up with Solitas House, which is a nonprofit HUD counseling agency, really just to help educate consumers so that they know what is out there. They know what type of loan programs are out there. They know what they can expect with regards to buying a home. I mean, there's so many options out there. And with their interest rates as low as they are, I mean, if you're paying $1,000, $1,100, $1,200 a month in rent, you are crazy. You should be owning a home with the rates as low as they are. So Laurie, what was your first rate on your first mortgage?
On my first,
first time
I don't
ever
even
got a
remember.
mortgage.
Actually, mine was, I remember it was very low, but you're talking, my first house was probably about 15 years ago, and I'm going to say I think it was around 6%, which at that time was low. But you know why?
Right.
Because my credit scores are very high.
And a lot of the parents, you ask them what their first rate was, and we're talking 15, 20%. I mean, in the 80s, it was crazy.
Right.
So, and at some point when inflation kicks in, those interest rates are going to go up, and we'll see the impact of those as well. So when we come back in a minute, we're going to tell you what to do if you have no score at all, and also tell you what to do about that old stuff that pops up after it goes away, and what to do about all that. You're listening to Tampa Home Talk. This is Katrina Madewell. We'll be back in just a minute.
John Rakowski, the broker with Charles Ruttenberg Realty. If you are a real estate agent and want to keep more of your hard-earned commission, call me today at 727-538-9200 extension 2. This call will change your real estate career.
Curious where your credit score is? Text the word credit to 813-377-2775. Not sure where it needs to be in order to buy? We'll tell you. Simply text the word credit to 813-377-2775 for access to your credit score now.
Hi, I'm Ike Antonio Thomas, Director of Solitas House, where we offer homeownership workshops, pre-purchase counseling, foreclosure intervention counseling for homeowners at risk of losing their home, financial coaching for adults and teens. Come sign up for our program where if you save $1,000, we'll give you $1,000. Call us 813-425-4847. Again, 813-425-4847. You can like us on Facebook or you can find us on the web, solitashouse.com.
Curious what your Tampa home is worth? Here's an easy way to find out what homes like yours are selling for in today's market. Text the word value to 813-377-2775 for a free report on Tampa house prices. We'll send you a free report with up-to-the-minute statistics based on all homes for sale sold in your neighborhood over the last 6 months in all price ranges. To get your free report on Tampa Bay house prices, just call or text the word value to 813-377-2775.
Good afternoon. Thanks for rejoining us on this Thursday afternoon here at Tampa Home Talk. I'm your host, Katrina Madewell with Charles Ruttenberg Realty, and I thank you so much for joining us today here at Tan Talk Radio Network. I have in studio with me today Laurie Zoock.
Thank you for having me.
Host a great half full, half empty show. Be on tonight at 11 o'clock for all you late night owls. Stay up and check out her show.
Thank you.
So before the break, we're talking a little bit about credit and how it works and the credit company's algorithms and that whole maze, right? The mess of credit. Like some people just, I think once they get a couple bad things on there, I've seen they literally just throw their hands up and they're like,
that's most people.
I'm done. I can't do this. I don't know what to do. I don't know what's next. It's never going to go away. It's always going to be bad.
Well, guess what? When I started learning this, I did the same thing. I threw my hands up in the air. I went home and I cried and I said, how come when you dispute things or send letters to companies, why doesn't anyone actually reviewing paperwork and documents? So exactly what you're saying for the people listening, is how I started out, saying, wow, this is a puzzle. Now, I like puzzles, but I will tell you this was one frustrating puzzle. Do I know every single thing? No. But I do like a good challenge. I like when someone comes up with something I don't know, because then I have to find the answer.
For sure. And we see so many new things every day in the real estate arena, even in the credit arena. I mean, we just see numerous things. I mean, not to date myself, but I come from the mortgage side of the business, and I remember when we didn't even have credit scores. Like, we literally would grade the credit A, B, C, D.
Right.
And that's how we did it back in the day. So the scores have kind of, taken the mystery out of what an underwriter thinks your score should be graded. So that part, I guess, that makes it more fair.
Well, that's actually an interesting topic, because before the FICO scores were in existence, it was more, if you've ever seen the movie It's a Wonderful Life, I don't know if you're familiar with that, with Jimmy Stewart, and he owns Bailey Brothers, the loan and savings, and everything was done on a handshake and honor, trust, and respect. Now you're reduced down only to your FICO score and your income improving documents. Maybe it should be somewhere in the middle of that, where it's not just, you're just not just a number.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Unfortunately, I don't think that your credit score defines who you are. And it's one of our missions in the show is to help you keep and maintain, even rebuild your credit so that you can live within your means and build wealth. So questions on your credit, call us today. Here we're in studio live, 727-441-3000. We're happy to answer a lot of your credit questions on what you can do to bring those scores up. What's a good score? What's a bad score? And we'll get into some of those details next. Again, 727-441-3000. So if you're stuck on one of those bridges, call in and be happy to answer some of those credit questions that you've had burning, keeping you up at night. So we talked about old stuff falling off like after 7.5 years
from the date it initially went delinquent. Right. There are some exceptions to that, which are government things or bankruptcies, liens. Some depending on what it is, it can stay on longer. But the majority of things come off after the 7.5 year time frame. Now,
I know once a lot of that stuff falls off, sometimes people think they have bad credit forever, but you can actually get to a point where either you're younger and you don't have any credit, meaning you have no credit score at all, or maybe you had bad credit or you just haven't used credit in years. You can actually get to a place where you do not report a score.
You can. I actually get clients like that. Maybe I'll get a referral from somebody who says, "Hey, I got this client," and they have nothing. It could be even older people who have just paid cash, and they don't know how to develop positive credit. So, would you like me to give you some tips?
Absolutely.
Okay. The easiest way is to get 2 secured credit cards. And I would not advise doing it online because the fees to do so are outrageous and the interest rates to do so are outrageous.
Right.
So typically, if you go to a bank or credit union, the tips that I would give to that would be that the 2 credit cards, say a MasterCard and a Visa, it's basically secured. It's like a prepaid card, in other words, should report to all 3 credit bureaus. So let me ask you, Katrina, why do you think it should report to all 3 credit bureaus?
I know why I should report to all 3 credit bureaus.
Okay.
But I can tell you from the mortgage side and the real estate side, it's going to be important. For one, their algorithms are different, so your score is going to be different. Mm-hmm. And for 2, in the mortgage world, whenever you go to get pre-approved to buy a house, we're going to look at all 3 scores and we're going to pick the middle of those 3 scores. And they're always going to be different.
That's correct. And so they're dropping the highest number, the lowest number.
And using the middle.
Excuse me, with that mid
Now,
score.
if you only have 2, they're going to use the bottom.
That's
of
correct.
Those 2.
That's why you want that
so it's important
card to
yes.
report to all 3. Now, there is another way. A few years ago when the market tanked, there's something called authorized user, or you can be a joint card holder. If you were an authorized user a few years ago, mortgage companies didn't necessarily utilize that, towards the mortgage. But nowadays, within the last few years, if you're an authorized user, meaning, let's say you have you, Katrina, have a credit card, and your husband wants to boost his credit, you can add him on as an authorized user, but make sure that credit card is a perfect payment history.
Right.
Where you're utilizing a very small amount of credit and leaving a small balance. And what'll happen is it will pick up onto his credit report. So that will help boost the score.
Absolutely.
Now, as an authorized...
Now, make sure, you trust the person that you're adding on as an authorized user.
Right. I mean, I have clients who may get added on by a family member, and I explain they don't even have to give you the card. However, if they make
make sure they're
payment,
paying it on time,
that's
baby.
right, because if they make one late payment, that can crash your scores
immediately.
Right. Now, some banks will do it and some will not. What's riskier to me is adding on. I'm going to go back to you. Let's say you wanted to add your husband on as a joint card holder. That means that you're equally liable on that card. So subsequently, if there are any problems, and sometimes this happens between people, you both are in trouble.
Now, from my experience, they usually don't like to add on joint card holders. Now, do they? They like to do that from the beginning, don't they? Well, when you open the account?
They will add you on usually if it's a spouse.
Gotcha.
Not always if it's another family member. The authorized user is easier.
Now, it's interesting, but there's just, credit is, again, it can be this big, big mystery. What about the old accounts that were collections that come back? They resurface after 7.5 years or 10 years.
Okay.
They sell it off to another collection agency. And
yeah, but what's supposed to happen, I'll give you the first scenario. When you default with the original creditor, and they sell it off to a collection agency or assign it to a collection agency in the case of medical debt. With the original creditor, it should zero out. So let's assume that happened. Now, the first collection agency that has that debt is supposed to report the same date of initial delinquency as the original creditor did. However, as you know, a lot of times they re-age that debt to the date they bought it. So, of course, that keeps it on your report longer. And you're going to say, I know your next question, is that legal? The answer is no, but it's going to be up to you to fight, dispute, and challenge it. And what happens is over a period of years, these companies keep selling off that same debt a good portion of the time by redating it. So while it should be off, it may become the credit battle.
Gotcha. So we're going to take a call in from my friend Brandon Rhymes with the Real Estate Quarterback Show. He'll be on Saturday's show at 5 o'clock. Good afternoon, Brandon.
Hey, Katrina. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for listening.
Absolutely. We enjoy it. And just what a great opportunity for the Tampa Bay listeners to get into home ownership. And we talk about the low cost of funds, the affordability of properties now. And, man, got to get off the fence if you're not a homeowner.
Absolutely. The one thing I want to just chime in on, because we see this and it drives me nuts, because I tell people this every single time, and we love helping our little first-time home buyers, that are buying the smaller homes. I'll help anybody. We have that to, properties that are $1 million. But what I'll tell you is, please listen. Just because you got a contract and, your loan is submitted with the mortgage company, they pulled your credit, you still have to keep your debt in check. Don't go maxing out your credit cards, buying window treatments for a house you don't own yet, or even worse, buying a car for a garage you don't have, right?
Right, and people do that the day before the closing
Oh,
because they think they're safe, and then it blows the whole deal.
And by the way, those lenders are re-pulling credit a lot of times the day of closing. They're also re-verifying employment, so you better make sure that you still have your job and your income and your credit's the same. Don't go doing crazy stuff.
Right. And I don't know if you knew this, but do you know that mortgage companies will actually look on social media, like your Facebook page?
Oh, I believe it. Yeah, to grab your information.
Yes, and to see not only are you who you really are, but did you just go on a big vacation, buy an expensive car? They're checking you out.
So I guess you could change your settings if you were uncomfortable with that, but it's a good little tidbit to know.
Exactly.
Brandon, what do you think about the credit piece?
Yeah, credit is such an important piece, and I think it's important for people to reach out to experts like you have on your show today. And just get the facts and understand that one of the most important things they can do also is opt out of pre-screening, reduce the amount of junk mail that you're getting, cut it off, and reduce the chances of identity theft. We all have heard how big identity theft is now, and with the latest breaches with Target and J.P. Morgan. So that's number one. And get your free annual report and review it with an expert. Check with your local credit expert, mortgage professional, or, of course, Katrina or I.
Yeah, somebody that knows how to read credit, right? You got to know what you're looking at.
You do. And, you heard me say I cried when I first learned to do it. Now it's a breeze. I can look through it and figure it out. I will tell you the annualcreditreport.com is more difficult to read than a mortgage person's credit report, for example.
Absolutely.
It's made that way.
I think ours is more simplistic. So I don't know if they do it to confuse the consumer or what that's about. So Brandon will actually be on our show this Saturday at 5 o'clock. We're talking about some great stuff here in our market, as well as a little tidbit from a financial guy.
Yeah, Mark Sherwin did a great job on the show, and he always does a great job. And we're going to be talking about some of our listings, and we've got some awesome properties here in the Tampa Bay market to market and to talk about. and just share a wealth of information with your listeners.
And Brandon also is going to share Saturday regarding some of the flood stuff, because I know the flood insurance reform, the Bigger Waters Act is a huge, huge topic here in the Tampa Bay area. So some great information. If you're not already familiar with it, you want to stick around and listen into what we have to say on that Saturday.
Yeah, what a great show we've got planned, and appreciate you toting the flag and kind of carrying that leadership flag here in the market, sorting through the nonsense of the mainstream media and helping our local folks understand that it's not all doom and gloom when the media jumps on it and they try to paint that picture.
Absolutely. Brandon Rhymes and myself both are under the Real Estate Radio Network umbrella, and really just strive to bring more of a positive spin to, than what the average media tries to sell. And I know that, unfortunately, the doom and the gloom sells, right? But it's, you have to be real in life and what's available and what's out there. It's not always doom and gloom. For example, in the mortgage crisis, they were talking about all the people that didn't make their mortgage payment. Well, what about the stats on the people that did? Because those numbers were a heck of a lot higher than the people that didn't.
Right. Yeah, that's a big point. And with the affordability factor where we're at right now, with the cost of funds and a lot of the macroeconomic things behind us, the shock of Obamacare, some would argue, and jobs still somewhat rebounding, we live in the best city, arguably the best city in the best country in the world with Tampa Bay, and we've got a lot of good things happening around us. So especially for those renters out there, if you're on the fence about getting into home ownership, reach out to Katrina's show and let her pre-qualify you. She's got experts on the mortgage side, on the credit side, obviously in studio, and get pre-qualified. Find out what you could afford, because right now as a renter, you're paying your landlord's mortgage, throwing a lot of money away that's unnecessary, where you could be building your own legacy, and not to mention the tax write-offs.
And Brandon, a lot of times, I know you see this, I do, we see people that are renting for $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 a month, and then they go to buy a house that's comparable to what they live in, and their mortgage payment is actually lower than what they're paying in rent. Yeah,
absolutely. And just using round numbers, latest Case-Shiller numbers are 14% year-over-year appreciation for Tampa Bay. But let's just round it down to say 10%. So it slows down to 10%. You buy a $300,000 home, and you got at the end of a couple of years there, you've got $20,000, $30,000, $60,000 of equity that you built up.
Right.
And talk about building a legacy, and just the home ownership piece, to have the mentality of your family, knowing that you're an owner versus a renter, and you're going to take care of that and have home ownership pride.
Brandon, I had a client that had a grown child and then had another one, a little bit older of an age in life, and just realized how when she looked back on her parents, they didn't have anything. They had 10 kids and they didn't leave anything behind to anyone. And so it was really important to her, not only stability of having a great place, because, let's face it, in this day and age, we're seeing renters that are paying their rent on time, but maybe their landlord is not making their mortgage payment. And the next thing you know, the bank or the sheriff or the process server shows up and says, hey, by the way, the house is in foreclosure. So, when you're an owner, you can control that type of stuff. You can control your destiny. You don't have to move if you don't want to. You can paint your walls blue if you want to. And some of the beauty of home ownership.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's happening still. It happens a lot. And what a surprise. Get a knock on the door, like you said, and bam, you're out next day. Or, not quite the next day, but, within a couple of weeks in many cases. So you're in a position as a homeowner to control your destiny, control your equity, and then leverage that money down the road. Maybe you pull out some equity later and buy a second property, and now you're leveraging your assets.
Right, and I imagine that process server, that sheriff probably shows up at the worst possible time, where the tenant has no even thought about moving at that particular moment.
Yeah.
So you're listening to Tampa Home Talk. This is your host, Katrina Madewell. We have to take a very quick break, but I'm going to leave you with our studio call-in numbers, because we're taking your credit questions and tips and tricks, and we'll give you some more information. We also post all the stuff on our website, tampahometalk.com. Studio call-in line 727-441-3000. Call us with your credit questions. We'll be happy to answer them. We'll also tell you how to rebuild if you have some specific questions. 727-441-3000. We'll be back in just a minute.
Ask me about an inside secret to save several hundreds of dollars on your annual homeowner's insurance premium. Text the word WIND, W-I-N-D, to 813-377-20 813-377-2775. Again, 813-377-2775.
I'm John Rakowski, the broker with Charles Rutenberg Realty. If you are a real estate agent and want to keep more of your hard-earned commission, call me today at 727-538-9200 extension 2. This call will change your real estate career.
My name's Carol Ost, representing the Realtors Care Foundation, GTAR. I'm the CEO there, and the foundation is existing to help with down payment assistance, and we gift up to $5,000 for the first-time home buyers to purchase a home in Hillsborough County. So please visit us at the Realtors Care of GTAR.org or call us at 813-879-7010. 813-879-7010.
I'm Ike Antonio Thomas, Director of Salitas House, where we offer homeownership workshops, pre-purchase counseling, foreclosure intervention counseling for homeowners at risk of losing their home, financial coaching for adults and teens. Come sign up for our program where if you save $1,000, we'll give you $1,000. Call us 813-425-4847. Again, 813-425-4847. You can like us on Facebook or you can find us on the web, salitashouse.com.
Curious what your Tampa home is worth? Here's an easy way to find out what homes like yours are selling for in today's market. Text the word value to 813-377-2775 for a free report on Tampa house prices. We'll send you a free report with up-to-the-minute statistics based on all homes for sale sold in your neighborhood over the last 6 months in all price ranges. To get your free report on Tampa Bay house prices, just call or text the word value to 813-377-2775.
Good afternoon. Thanks for rejoining us here on Tan Talk Radio Network. You're listening to your host, Katrina Madewell, with Tampa Home Talk. Also have in studio my guest, Laurie Zoock,
Thank you.
Credit Consultants. Thanks for joining us with some awesome credit tips and information. So I know Brandon, just a second ago before the break, was talking about the appreciation, and we've had some great appreciation over the last several years. We've caught up with a lot of those deficits that we've had and just where the market and the property values just tanked. So certainly the values were much higher. And if you would like to give us a shout out, Tampa Home Talk, our off-air number is 813-936-2302. We're happy to give you a current, just comparative market analysis, give you an idea or a range what your house is worth in today's market, because it's probably a lot different than it was 2 or 3 years ago. And I know that a lot of you are from somewhere else, right? Because Tampa Bay is a melting pot.
It is.
So if you have those relatives that are in that crazy weather with all the snow and the sleet and the storms, and they're just saying, wow, I am just sick of this. Can you help me find a job here in the Tampa market? Our Tampa Bay market is awesome for job growth and opportunities. And we really would love to have you. So connect with us here at Tampa Home Talk, 813-936-2302, or on our website. Be happy to show you some of the stuff we have and help your family members find homes here in Tampa. So a couple of the properties I want to mention to you that we have, a couple awesome ones. We have one that just hit the market. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, over 1,700 square feet in the Carrollwood area, Steinbrenner School District, one of the best in the county, at 15930 Eagle River Way. And that's listed at just $200,000. It's a pool home with a brand spanking new kitchen, stainless steel appliances, hardwood floors, fireplace. It's an absolute beauty. New fence. I mean, you won't have to do anything to this house. The owner has done everything. So it's absolutely gorgeous. Not going to last long. Give us a call, 813-936-2302. We'll be happy to get you in there for a showing. Also, we have another property, a very big one in Ruskin, 6-bedroom, 3-bath, almost 4,000 square feet, 1805 Oak Pond Avenue. It's down there in Hawks Point for just $250,000. That is so cheap. The price per square foot is amazing. And that area really hasn't quite built up yet, but that new Amazon distribution center is going in right there. As soon as that thing's done, it's going to bring a lot of jobs to the area. It's going to bring a lot of activity to the area, a lot of businesses. So if you're looking for a deal and you want to just chime in and get a good big house at the right time before the market prices peak peak in that area and go up, that's a great property. We also have one in Land O'Lakes at 9212 Lost Mill Drive for just $200,000. It's on a conservation pond lot, almost 3,500 square feet. 5 bedrooms, 4 full bathrooms. Very, very big home. And it's getting a brand new paint job next week. So it's going to be absolutely stunning. And that one hasn't been on very long either. The tenant just moved out, so we're going to make it a beauty again. We also have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Tampa, almost 1,100 square feet, 6320 South Church Avenue for $122,000. I don't expect you to remember all this, but you can get all of this information and more on our website at tampahometalk.com. We'd also love to take your questions there on our Facebook and Twitter page. Just search for at Tampa Home Talk, and then also the same for Facebook. So let's dive back into our credit topic that we had at hand.
Sure.
So I know you made up a really good point, because a lot of times we recommend when people don't have scores to go to Badcock, because they will actually give pretty much anybody that hasn't had a bankruptcy in the last 2 years some type of credit so that they can get a score. And we say, look, go buy a lamp, buy something small, build that credit.
Small companies will do that.
The problem with them is I think they only report to one bureau. So it's a great place to start, but you're probably also going to need to open up another account maybe after you get the Badcock account.
Well, right. But if you get the secured credit cards through the bank, and you get, say, the MasterCard and the Visa, that reports to all 3 bureaus, and then you activate it by maybe buying a tank of gas, is what I tell my clients. Buy a tank of gas.
Something you're going to pay off anyway.
Right. Or just leave a little balance riding on there. That's a good way to do it. Really, you don't want to have more than 2 to 3 credit cards. If you have 2 major credit cards and you have a small one, as you mentioned, like Badcock, for example, that's perfect.
And nobody really needs more credit cards than that anyway, because if you don't have the cash to buy it, you probably shouldn't be purchasing it anyway.
Correct. Now, it's funny. I look at a lot of credit reports where you'll see, people have 10 credit cards or 12 credit cards. Well, first off, that makes you look very risky to a lender.
Absolutely.
Now you have all this that you could be going out and buying on unsecured debt, and you want to buy a house, and to them, that looks risky.
I'm going to give one more rant too, because I just have to. And this is a property that one I sold a while back. I have another one that's actually coming on the market, and I got to tell you, the homeowners have car payments that are more than their freaking house, and their car payments are like putting them into bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. So don't drive your house, as my friend Ike Antonio Thomas would say at Salitas House. Don't drive your house, because if you're paying $500 a month, and sometimes we see they have 2 car payments, $500, $600, $700 a month. I mean, that's crazy. You could buy an investment property for that and really just build some long-term wealth and have a huge return on investment. So pay cash for your cars, people. Be smart. Live within your means so that you can later build wealth, because social insecurity is not going to be there when you get older.
I'm going to give you a little tip on cars, because I do this myself and have done so for many years, and most people don't know it. But, excuse me, when you purchase a car, what you can actually do is double up your payments. Triple up your payments if you can afford to do so. Don't go out and buy a very expensive car. Buy something you can realistically afford. Double up those payments, and you'll pay it off much faster. Absolutely. And guess what? It shows up on your credit report. It's amazing.
And the car dealers, man, they get people financed that I didn't even think could be financed. It's kind of crazy.
They'll find it, but remember, they'll track the car down and come and get it.
Absolutely.
If you haven't paid for it.
Call-in lines here for the studio if you have questions for us regarding mortgage, real estate, credit stuff. We're happy to take them. Happy to tell you what you need to know to rebuild. You don't have to give your name. You can stay anonymous. 727-441-3000. We're happy to answer those questions that you have. Again, if you're watching via the streaming web, Tan Talk 1340. We can see you.
Wave.
You can see us. Or you can call in at 727-441-3000. So let's dive into a little bit more with the credit stuff. What are some of the misnomers that you hear, like this frequently asked things that people think it's one way and you're like, no, not really?
Oh gosh, I don't even know where to begin with that because it's so much. The most common one we talked about a little earlier is when people just go in. A regular consumer would expect that when you look at the credit reports and you have collections, common sense would dictate that if you pay them off, it will zero out and your scores will go up. But the reverse is true because the old date comes current. It drops it.
Easier
like
for these old collections.
Right. And so unfortunately, when people come to me, if they've already paid off the collections, it almost makes me sick or sad, I should say, to tell them that they shot themselves in the foot because they thought they were doing something good. But no one knows most of this.
It's not forever, but it'll take time to heal that wound.
It will.
Just
it'll
like
take
with
a while.
anything.
Right.
So let's also talk about bankruptcy, because I think a lot of people think, oh, God, I had to file bankruptcy. My credit's ruined forever. It's never going to get better. But the truth of that is it's really just a protection that you have that our federal government set up. Sometimes people just need to hit the reset button, you know?
Right. If you get to the point, and a bankruptcy will determine that by giving you a means test. Now, if you qualify for the Chapter 7, which is total liquidation.
Meaning they discharge all of your debt. You don't have to repay it.
Right. But you can't have, there's a certain amount of assets you're allowed to have in dollar value. There's a certain dollar value. If you have a very expensive car, guess what? It's you know, but again, if you want a fresh start, it gives you an opportunity. It's a learning experience. However, on a Chapter 7, you can start rebuilding your credit fairly quickly because everything is discharged.
Absolutely.
And the Chapter 7 will stay on your reports for 10 years. But guess what? Within a year or two, you can be good to go if you know what you're doing. Really,
after just a couple years, 2-3 years, if you haven't missed a beat, you're making your payments on time, you can buy a house again.
Right.
And our credit show partner, Silverton Mortgage, can help get you on that track and help you determine what you need to do. A lot of times our job is credit preparation. Like, we literally have to help people. We take a snapshot of their credit right now, and then we literally have to help them figure out what to do next to get credit ready so that they can purchase a home. And there's a love of home ownership that I have. And, you know, when I hear stories and I see things on my clients and they become friends, usually after I've worked with them, because you get close, you know a lot about people. And to hear some of the things that they say and the things they post on Facebook, like how excited they are to get their house. I mean, we've had clients we've worked with for 2 and 3 years to finally get that home. And it's amazing to see that transformation, because some of them have to work really hard to get there.
They do. And the same thing for me. You know, I've had clients call and invite me over to the house because they're so ecstatic. So it makes me feel good I'm going to cry. It makes me feel good for what I do in helping them. So when
we
they
love
want
the
help,
housewarming parties. We love them.
Right. And those are the people that really want the house, and it's very emotional for them because it's not just a house, it is their home.
That's right. And for the sellers, that's hard because you got to make this, you know, emotional detachment. You have to make that transition from a home to a house because you're putting it on the market, and the buyers have to be able to see themselves living in that home.
Exactly.
So I want to touch on another thing here that's really good, because we had some attorneys, friends of ours, in the studio before talking about the collection rights that they have. And you have rights. If you have collections on there, there's things that these collection companies can and cannot do.
Right. Things that I know they cannot do is harass you. They can't threaten you. They can't call you a liar, a cheater, a thief. If they're, constantly, if they're calling your family members, your employer, and you've told them not to. If you sent them, a cease and desist letter saying don't call me, and they do, there are violations. In Florida, it's called the Florida Consumer Collection Practices Act. The federal law is the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. Now, if you're in Florida, I believe a lot of those laws are stronger than the federal laws.
And I actually had them on our show a while back when we were HNZ, Paul Fowkes and the other attorneys.
Oh, Ryan Hassenbassick.
Thank you. Yeah, they went into just some great generic stories that they had with regards to clients about how they actually pursue these collectors for violating consumers' rights and actually make them pay. And so, believe it or not, you can actually be awarded money. Yes.
Right. Well, again, 99
might be enough to pay off your debt.
You know what? A lot of times it is. If you have a small debt and they take the case, you might actually win some money, because usually there's a statutory limit of $1,000 in most cases on those debts. So if you have a $100 debt and they win, they're going to get their attorney's fees. You're not charged anything for them taking this case because there's such a small percentage of people that sue. It's maybe less than 1%.
Yeah, because most people don't know. They're afraid of these nasty collectors that are
let them be nasty.
Calling them names. And
you want them to be nasty. When you and you know what you do? If they're nasty, you log it. You write down the person's name, the company number, the date, the time, and exactly what they said. Because that can be used. They're going to be recording you. Unfortunately, in the state of Florida, you have to announce if you're recording them, and I guarantee you they'll hang up.
Oh, as soon as you tell
them
you're recording, they'll hang up.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's funny when you turn the tables on these guys. They don't like it very much.
Now, you know what? They're going to hang themselves if you are educated and know how it works.
So let's talk about magic numbers with regards to credit scores and mortgages, because I know what they are, you know what they are,
right.
But I don't know if the average consumer knows what they are. So what's the average credit score nationwide?
Oh, gosh.
Isn't it like 650 something, 653 or something like that?
I'm going to say it's in the 650 to 660 range is probably
Right.
the average. Now, on FICO, it goes up to 850. So
Which we've never seen, ever, in the whole existence of credit report history. I've
Rare.
never seen anything at 850 ever.
Rare. I've seen over 800. I have
Yes.
over 800 myself. But I will say that if you're at 780 or above, that's basically
It's
the platinum
golden.
card.
Yes.
Right, exactly. If you're at
Now let's talk
720,
about who these people are that are at a 780, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So the people that have a 780 credit score are going to be your people that pay cash for everything. They live within their means. They're paying their credit cards on time. They probably have the same credit cards forever.
They do. The length of history is very important to FICO. And I'm going to give your listeners a little trick. People are always worried that they're going to be late with their payments, and they should know the date that the payment is due. What I actually do is I make payments twice a month. That way, I will never be late. I will always be ahead. Therefore, I'll never have a late payment, and I'll never have a hit to my score.
Even if you set up your auto draft for minimum, like it's easy to get sucked into this trap. Like, oh no, I'm not going to make the minimum payment because I'll never get it paid off. But you can actually set at least up your minimum, and then, like you say, go in and make another payment,
right?
So that you can pay down that debt or pay it off or whatever. That way, if you're traveling, if you're on vacation, you have a family emergency, anything like that come up, you're ahead, and you've made that payment on time, and it doesn't impact your score,
right? And just another thought, and I don't know if you suggest this, but my thought would be if I were, do you remember years ago there were vacation funds at the bank? You would go and make a $100 payment every month, and at the end of the year you'd have $1,200 plus interest, and you go on vacation.
We
right?
still do that. We set up our separate little account for our Christmas club and our vacations. We do that because we want to pay cash for our stuff.
Well, why not do that for a house? Because there are going to be costs associated,
absolutely,
with purchasing a house. Excuse me. So
you'll have maintenance. I mean, there's
right.
homeowner maintenance that you don't have when you're a renter. So you have to keep those things in mind. You have to bear in fact how old is your roof. If you have a pool, those are going to be extra expenses, not only for chemicals, but the pump and a lot of other things in between. Right. So have a little savings fund.
Right. And, Mint.com is a free budgeting tool.
Yes,
A lot of people don't know that.
Mint.com. You can actually link it to your phone.
Free.
You can link it online. Keeps track of your assets. It keeps track of your liabilities. It keeps track of everything. Tells you what you have. And the thing I love about Mint, Laurie, thanks for bringing that up.
You're welcome.
Mint actually keeps track of your spending patterns. Okay. So it's, oh my gosh, how easy is it to spend $500 a month eating out?
Easy. I used to, you know what? We're going back years before computers,
Starbucks.
so I'm dating myself. But my dad used to say, keep a little notebook and write down every penny you spend and then categorize it at the end of the month, and you'll go into shock as far as where you spend your money.
And guess what? We know you're not going to do that, so let Mint.com do it for you, because it will literally itemize it, but it keeps track of your history and your spending patterns. So if you usually spend, say, $100 or $200 a month on gas, and then this month you spent $250 or $300, it's going to say, hey, Katrina, you're over budget on your gas. Normally you spend this month it's this.
Right.
So it's just a fine way for you to keep tabs on what you're spending. If you're a regular Starbucks repeat offender, I love Starbucks. Everybody loves their coffee, but that should be a treat.
Right.
Shouldn't be an every morning routine, because let's face it, $5 a day
is expensive.
Even if you do it just during the week, like 5 times a day or 5 times a week, it's going to add up. I mean, at the end of the day, you can pay cash for a car in a couple of years on what you spend.
Right.
For
you got to know what your income is and what your expenditures are every single month. And you should have 6 months worth of savings backed up so that in the event something happens,
have at least an emergency
plan.
fund of $1,000. I'm a big Dave Ramsey advocate and listener of his show for a long time. We're on his ELP network, but I got to tell you that, I can't talk enough about the emergency fund. Save $1,000, get to that comfortable place, pay your bills first before you do anything else. And you'll be able to sleep and rest at night. And if you're not at that place, then guess what? Meet with someone, write it all down, put together a plan on how you're going to be able to help yourself not only keep your debt in check and live within your means, but eventually you need to grow some type of wealth for yourself.
Right. And you got to be motivated, and you have to want these things. Absolutely.
It's, it takes all types to make the world go round, for sure. But, it's not, you live within your means. Right. Make sure your credit stays good. We'll help you build wealth.
And then you can get into a nice and beautiful house like
exactly.
you just mentioned.
So one more thing I want to mention, because we had it on a little cheat sheet list here. What happens when people report stuff that's not accurate and then you dispute it? 'Cause that's what you used to do, right? Just send to the dispute, and eventually they either get tired of it and take it off or whatever. But now...
Not anymore. No.
They actually leave a remark.
It does.
And those are on the consumer ones too.
Yes. And if that mark that says consumer disputes is on your credit report, it has to be off before you
get a mortgage.
So, yes, that's correct.
Yes, you can't have anything in dispute. Now, the collections, they would ignore stuff sometimes when it was older. Now, all that stuff has to be settled.
Right.
So,
exactly.
The rules have changed quite a bit in the way they do things. And the qualified mortgage information that passed in January, there's a ton of information with regards to that, too. And there's more changes even coming to our HUD-1 settlement statement. So, look for one of our upcoming shows regarding the qualified mortgage information, because we're going to give you a ton of info on those. And it's just... what I've noticed and what I've seen in our market and like in the middle of this whole QM mess is we'd see somebody maybe with slightly higher ratios, still qualified, but what happens is they're going to actually put your information into what they call an automated underwriting system, which is like garbage in, garbage out, whatever. They're going to put in your information and it's going to say accept or refer. It'll either say yes, they'll take the computer likes your stuff, or they don't. Mm-hmm. So refer is like, forget it, hang it up. You got to fix some stuff before we're actually going to do that. And so a lot of that stuff that was accept, we seen it kind of move to that refer when they went to rerun it. So again, if you're in the middle of a mortgage, make sure that you keep your stuff in check. Make sure you don't buy any new things, take on any new debt, buy a car for that garage you don't own yet, or buy curtains for the house you don't have.
And don't apply for more credit.
No credit. So this is your host, Katrina Madewell of Tampa Home Talk. Thank you so much for joining us today on 1340, 1350, and 1400. We'll be back on Saturday at 5 o'clock, and you can catch us here every Thursday and Saturday at 5. Don't forget to check out our website if you missed any part of today's show. And as usual, all of our shows are on a podcast, so be sure and check us out at TampaHometalk.com. Hope you have a great afternoon home. Be safe driving in the traffic, and we'll talk to you on Saturday. But for now, we are out. There's no